हेलो दोस्तों, बिगनर्स पॉइंट में आपका स्वागत है। और अभी हम कर रहे हैं इकोनॉमिक्स क्लास 11 पार्ट टू का पार्ट नहीं चैप्टर टू। क्लास 11 पार्ट टू चैप्टर टू, कलेक्शन ऑफ डेटा। Introduction. In the previous chapter you have read about what is economics. You also studied about the role and importance of statistics in economics. ठीक है, ये पिछले चैप्टर में पढ़ा था। अगर नहीं पढ़ा है तो फिर प्लेलिस्ट बना रखी है, आप जा करके देख सकते हैं। In this chapter you will study the sources of data and the mode of data collection. The purpose of collection of data is to show evidence for reaching a sound and clear solution to a problem. In economics, you often come across a statement like this: after many fluctuations, the output of food grains, fluctuations मतलब जो स्थिर नहीं होता, अस्थिर ऐसे करके वो जो होता है, फ्लक्चुएट होता रहता, कभी कम कभी ज़्यादा। फूड ग्रेन्स रोज टू 132 मिलियन टन इन 1978 to 79 from 108 million tons in 1970 to 71, but fell to 108 million tons in 1979 to 1980. Production of food grains then rose continuously to 2052 million tons in 2015 to 16 and touched 2070 million ton 2072 20 नहीं है 272 million tons in 1670. In this statement, you can observe that the food grains production in different years does not remain the same. It varies from year to year and फ्रॉम क्रॉप टू क्रॉप। किस पे डिपेंड करता है, ये किस पे वेरी करता है? ईयर टू ईयर पे और क्रॉप टू क्रॉप पे। एज दीज वैल्यूज वेरी, दे आर कॉल्ड वेरिएबल्स। ठीक है, द वेरिएबल्स आर जनरली रिप्रेजेंटेड by the letters x, y or z. Each value of a variable is an observation. For example, the food grain production in India varies between 108 million tons in 1970 to 71 to 270 million tons in 1617, as shown in the following table. The years are represented by variable x and the production of food grains in India in million tons is represented by variable x. Food grain प्रोडक्शन ऑफ फूड ग्रेन इन इंडिया मिलियन टन्स एक्स 1970-71 में 108, 78-79 132, 1990 1990 टू 91 176, 1997 टू 98 100 194, 2001 दो 2000 212, 15-16 252, 16-17 272. Here the values of these variables x and y are data from which we can obtain information about the production of food grains in India. To know the fluctuations in food grains production, we need the data on the production of food grains in India for various years. Data is a tool which helps is understanding problems by providing information. You must be wondering, why do data come from and how do we collect these? In the following sections, we will discuss the type of data, method and instruments of data collection and sources of obtaining data. What are the sources of data? Statistical data can be obtained from two sources. The researcher may collect the data by conducting an inquiry. Such data are called primary data, as they are based on first-hand information. Suppose you want to know about the popularity of Filmstra among school students. For this, you will have to inquire inquiry from a large number of school students by asking questions from them to collect the desired information. The table you get is an example of primary data. If the data have been collected and processed, scrutinized and tabulated by some other agency, They are called secondary data. They can be obtained either from published sources such as government reports, documents, newspapers, books written by economists, or from any other source, for example, a website. Thus, the data are primary to the source that collects and processes them for the first time, and secondary for all sources that later use such data. Use of secondary data saves time and cost. For example, after collecting the data on the popularity of the film star amongst students, you publish a report. If somebody uses the data collected by you for a similar study, it becomes secondary data. How do we collect the data? Do you know how a manufacturer decides about a product or how a political party decides about a candidate? They conduct a survey. They conduct a survey asking questions about a particular product or candidate from a large group of people. The purpose of surveys is to describe some characteristics like price, quality, unfulness in case of the product, and popularity, honesty, loyalty in case of the candidate. The purpose of the survey is to collect data. Survey is a method of gathering information from individuals. Preparation of instrument. The most common type of instrument used in surveys is questionnaire and interview schedule. The questionnaire is either self-administered by the respondent or administered by the researcher or trained investigator. While preparing the questionnaire in interview schedule, you should keep in mind the following points. The questionnaire should not be too long. The number of questions should be as minimum as possible. The questionnaire should be easy to understand and avoid ambiguous or difficult words. The question should be arranged in an order such that the person answering should feel comfortable. The series of questions should move from general to specific. The questionnaire should start from general questions and proceed to more specific ones. For example, poor Q. Is increase in electricity charges justified? Is the electricity supply in your locality regular? Good Q. Is the electricity supply in your locality regular? Is increase in electricity charges justified? The question should be precise and clear. For example, poor Q. What percentage of your income do you spend on clothing in order to look presentable? Good Q. What percentage of your income do you spend on clothing? The question should not be ambiguous. They should enable the respondent to answer quickly, correctly and clearly. For example, poor Q. Do you spend a lot money on books in a month? Good Q. Tick mark the appropriate option. How much do you spend on books in a month? Less than 200 rupees, 200 to 300, 300 to 400, more than 400. The question should not use double negatives. The question starting with would not you or don't you should be avoided as they may lead to biased response. For example, poor Q. Don't you think smoking should be profi- prohibited? Good Q. Do you think smoking should be prohibited? The question should not be a leading question, which gives a clue about how the respondent should answer. For example, poor Q. How do you like the flavor of this high quality tea? Good Q. How do you like the flavor of this tea? The question should not indicate alternatives to the answer. For example, poor Q. Would you like to do a job after college or be a housewife? Good Q. What would you like to do after college? The questionnaire may consist of closed ended or structured questions or open ended or unstructured questions. The above question about what a student wants to after college is an open ended question. Close-ended or structured question can either be a two-way question or a multiple choice question when there are only two possible answers, yes or no. It is called two-way questions. When there is a possibility of more than two options of answers, multiple choice questions are more appropriate. Example: why do you sell your land? To pay off the debts, to finance children's education, to invest in another property, any other, please specify. Close-ended questions are easy to use, score, and codify for analysis because all respondents can choose from the given options. But they are difficult to write as the alternatives should be clearly written to represent both sides of the issue. There is also possibility that an individual's true response is not present among the option given. For this, the choice of any other is provided where the respondent can write a response which was not anticipated by the researcher. Moreover, another limitation of multiple choice questions is that they tend to restrict the answers by providing alternatives without which the respondents may have unanswered differently. Open-ended questions allow for more in, indi- individualized responses, but they are difficult to interrupt and hard to score since there are a lot of variations in the responses. Example: what is your view about globalization? Mode of data collection. अब ये करेंगे कल.